mean, when you think about your journey here, so your seed was February 2020. The A was September 21. The B, February 22. I mean, those are very short fundraising windows. I mean, how did this thing come together in what seems like such a relatively short period of time, given what you just described to me? It just seems fascinating, but also very complex.
We, in a very calculated way in the early days, just focused on demand. I think that's different than most marketplace models out there or equivalent businesses. A lot of the focus was, how do we bring these brands on? How do we build relationships? How do we build the flywheel of acquisition? How do we engage them with compelling product? And so because of that focus, we were able to monetize in interesting ways with more just like a SaaS play, but we always had an avenue for suppliers to come onto the platform. And so I think through that growth and knowing the mindset was always to make this a marketplace, that's just what enabled us to build enough trust and credibility in our market, who really values demand and getting access to demand, to get us to a place where we got suppliers willing to come on board and transact on the platform. So I appreciate the sentiment that it looks like it's been fast, because it's felt, this is a hard industry. Behavior change is difficult, and there's a lot of stuff working against us. And so it has definitely felt like a long journey to get to this point. But I feel like we've intentionally made these decisions, and it's actually panned out in our favor.
So to repeat back, to translate what you said, so demand equals brands, right?
Yes.
And you basically gave them a SaaS tool, to help them, with these different ingredient needs and formulation needs and these kinds of things, but you priced it in such a way which was very compelling and very easy for them to adopt, maybe even free for a certain period of time, because you knew that eventually you'd be monetizing the transactions with the actual suppliers.
Exactly. Yep. And so it was, we never wanted to cause friction to get the demand side to onboard and to engage with Novi. I will say there is one important caveat here, though, which is different also than a traditional context of B2B or B2C marketplace, is that the platform is not open. It is gated. And so we have to do that because buyers and suppliers, the supply must be verified, the buyer must be verified. Suppliers don't want to sell to somebody who you're going to ship a chemical to their home. And, a buyer doesn't want to buy from any person who's claiming to create an ingredient. So we have had to keep this a closed and gated community. And so then the question was, if that's a constraint, we don't want to limit anymore, or have any additional friction in getting buyers onto the platform and demand onto the platform. And so, yeah, a lot of it was, how do we create software that's super compelling, to little to no cost, get them heavily engaged, make it a very critical part of their product development and go-to-market process, which is why the retailers are critical to that. And then in that case, also, I think brands, if you think about brands, it does evolve. It does really, the umbrella there is the brand and their manufacturer. And so we think about it as their formulator, their contract manufacturer as part of that. But
yeah. Right. There's a brand, there's the formulator, the scientist, let's call that person, right? That most likely, if it's an indie brand, isn't necessarily like full-time at that company.
Exactly.
And then there's the actual, let's say, contract manufacturer that actually has to do the work, put all these things together and make the finished product, right? So your solution, when you talk about demand, is actually some mixture of all of those different parties.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that's capturing demand. Just doing that actually has at least probably more than just at minimum three stakeholders. And in and of itself creates just a lot of value and efficiency to help kind of coordinate what's going on there, let alone then stemming down to the actual, supplier side of the transaction. That makes a ton of sense. I would say the rub or the counterpoint would be, if you are going after the long tail and these indie brands, as you put it, which is generally generally where you see the innovation, where you see the appreciation for more sustainable practices, or the specialization around specific ingredients, right? It's not, that stuff doesn't start in the L'Oreals and the Revlons of the world. But that means that you have to get, in order to get enough demand, you have to get then a lot of these brands on board for that demand to actually be meaningful to the suppliers, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's exactly why the whole first couple of years of Novi have been focused on that, is how do we get brands in droves on the platform, and that's partnering with retailers and in other ways that has been the key to our success, to be quite honest.